Ladies and gentlemen, just before we start another episode of the Fitzness Academy podcast, if you are listening on YouTube, just remember that we are now on Spotify. So if you want the uninterrupted version of this episode, please head down to the link in the description, check us out there, and follow us on Spotify. Thank you, team. On with the episode.
All these boys around me are doing what I want to do, so like it gives me a constant something to look forward to, something to talk to them about their experiences, and at the end of the day, talking to them, getting conversations out of them, is free experience, like, because they've already done it, they've already been there and done it, and hopefully, like, I won't have to make my mistakes to learn those lessons. I can learn lessons from them, and I won't have to do it in my own way. So I suppose that's probably the biggest piece of advice I could give is surround yourself with good people, have a goal, believe in it. Attitude and commitment sounds cliche, but if you don't believe in yourself, nobody else is going to believe in yourself for you. So that's what probably a problem I had in the past was I knew I was good, but I didn't believe in my own abilities. Now I do. I know exactly what I'm capable of. I know exactly what I can do to these boys, and I don't mind saying it either. So yeah, self-belief, attitude, good environment, and people who actually genuinely care about you and want to see you do well, don't just see you as a number or a way to make some money out of you.
Just before we get into another episode of the Fitzness Academy podcast, team, sorry to interrupt you again, but just a reminder that we are now looking for podcast episode sponsors. So if you have a small business or you know someone that does, please send them our contact information, team. The email is down in the description box below, and we will send info of what the sort of sponsorship consists of and then how your amazing business can be promoted to our amazing audience. Thanks, team. On with the episode. Welcome back to another episode of the Fitzness Academy podcast, ladies and gents. So this one is an unbelievable one to film because I've got our first fighter on the podcast today. Okay, so Roan Crocker is an MMA fighter or mixed martial artist fighter, and we're going to go into a couple of accolades in a second. But Roan, thanks for coming on firstly.
No worries, cheers for having me on.
No worries. So firstly, mate, and I don't know if you've watched any of the episodes yet. I throw everyone in the deep end straight away and ask a little bit of a what do you call it, like an icebreaker question. All right, so for yourself, any pre-fights or camp rituals which you stick by, no one breaks them, and you got to stick by them?
No, I used to be a bit superstitious. I used to wear the same kit to go to competitions in. I used to wear the same rash guards and the same shorts, but that was when I was a bit younger, and at one tournament I just went, right, I'm going to wear something different for once, and I still won the tournament, so I just, stopped.
You realised it weren't the end of the world, and you just cracked on it. It was all good.
It's all good.
Awesome.
Can't keep wearing the same pants.
Mate, yeah, I was going to say, mate. Right, cool. So some of the accolades, ladies and gents, it's a long list. All right, so obviously, right, for now, only, amateur record of 11-2. So Junior International Mixed Martial Artists Federation European Champ. English MMA Four Nations Champ. 3-time Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu British champ. This seems really awkward because I know everything about it. I've done the research. Current and probably one of the most important Cage Warriors Academy middleweight champ. Obviously defended the title the other day. If you pop over to some of the interviews, I'll leave the links in the description for some of them. And obviously alumni of South Wales, which is obviously how I met Rowan. Obviously alumni now in doing this course in S&C. So obviously, like I mentioned just previously, me and Rowan met when we were starting off at Cardiff City as an intern, and then obviously Rowan went on to do amazing stuff at Sport Wales. So yeah, obviously taking it back a little bit, about a year and a bit now. So mate, obviously a hell of a lot of accolades there, and obviously it's only the beginning. But talk to us a bit about your journey, sort of where it started, where it's got to now.
So I started off when I was 16, so that would be 2016. About halfway through the year, started off with Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Started competing in that probably, I don't know, maybe 6 months after, and then just started competing more regular and realised I was pretty good at it for like white belt standard. So I won a couple of comps. I won the British Nogi at a white belt. Then my coach asked me at the time if I wanted to go to the IMAFs to make my debut in MMA. So it was the flight to Romania was the day after my last A-level exam. So I could go. So I went to Romania IMAFs and won that, and then I come back. I've just been fighting ever since then. I didn't really expect to become an MMA fighter, shall we say. I just thought I'd just do grappling, and I wasn't any good, or wouldn't be good enough to do MMA, but that went out the window, and here I am.
And then how does that transition from, sort of, again, for anyone who sort of isn't aware, sort of from a sport like sort of jiu-jitsu then to a sport like MMA? Obviously, I think everyone probably gets an idea as to sort of the technical aspects when you're grappling, when you get a takedown and you're grappling in that sense. But how do the two link over? And straighten us off, like a starting point, which I think is a good one, because it dives into technical element a bit. How do the two sort of complement each other?
Yeah, so you can, I'd say a lot of the grappling in MMA it's more like wrestling style, like it's geared towards keeping top position and beating people up from the top. It's hard to win fights off your back now in MMA, so like being on the bottom doesn't really benefit you anymore. So I'd say like the differences would be, like in jiu-jitsu obviously you can't strike as well, so in MMA the grappling's changed there because you can grapple and strike at the same time, which changes up everything, and which is what makes it important to be on top. But yeah, there's loads of parallels. Like I started off with jiu-jitsu and it provided me with like the base, and then when I moved gyms there, I think that base got expanded then to become a more MMA style, and that's it really. Like there'll be less emphasis on takedowns in jiu-jitsu, whereas like wrestling style takedowns everything. So there are parallels, there are differences, and yeah, they do complement each other. Like you can't go fighting MMA without knowledge of submissions and all the rest of it. So yeah, you've got to have it, but it's not the only art when it comes to the grappling. You know what I mean, you still got your wrestling, your judo, all these elements still come in. So it is good.
Not only that, you'll probably like learn them to a certain extent along the way, because like, I think if I'm not mistaken, like from a UFC perspective, I think I was seeing a doc from Conor McGregor, and he was kind of saying how the first Aldo fight before he pulled out, he was saying how sort of Chad Mendes was that came in, I think it was, saying how Chad Mendes was renowned as being this sort of incredible wrestler, sort of, and sort of won all his fights that way, whereas McGregor had that sort of striking skill, and obviously Chad didn't. Do you reckon, sort of, from that perspective, when you're taking a fight or when you're looking at a fight, it's quite even in a certain sense, because some people's going to have this certain skill, some people are going to have this certain skill, and then obviously vice versa, and you're going to try and attack, obviously, which one of those weaknesses are there, or try and better your own?
Yeah, I think the days of like being a specialist are pretty much over. Like back in the day, it would be billed as like a striker versus a grappler, and that was going right up until sort of McGregor versus Mendes times. I do think Mendes probably would have beat McGregor if he had more notice, if I'm being truthfully honest. Like, because Mendes can strike. Obviously, he's a great wrestler, but his kickboxing skills are still there. But more recently, I feel like the game is completely rounded out, and like everybody's good everywhere. Everyone's got good striking, everyone's got good wrestling, good grappling. It's just if you're not good anywhere else, then someone's going to exploit it because we're well rounded everywhere. You know what I mean? So yeah, the days of being like a specialist are all gone. I think it's its own style.
Yeah, it makes things like sort of myself not being a fighter and watching on as a fan. It makes things 10 times more interesting, doesn't it? Because you get to sort of a position where sort of anyone can win a fight at any time based on either sort of a little sort of a brilliant shot, a brilliant takedown, regardless of what their previous pedigree was, huh?
Yeah, there's so many ways to win. I think that's what makes it like more exciting than boxing, for example, because obviously boxing's got two hands, and if you're not knocking them out, then you're winning on the scorecards, whereas obviously with MMA, there's obviously so many different styles of martial art, and obviously so many ways to win that anything can happen at any time. And I do feel like if you watch a boxing fight and this guy's winning for half the fight, he would probably go on to tend to win the fight. You'll see it out. But with MMA, obviously, there's only 3 rounds, so somebody can win the first 2, but then they're tired, and then the third round goes the other way, and that's all that matters. But it's definitely, I think it's the most exciting sport to watch, hands down.
I think especially when you have like an underdog who sort of tends to come away with a victory in the end, even probably when you're not seeing it at the moment, where you see him dominating for 2 rounds, land a strike, fight's over, you kind of get a sense that, I didn't see that one coming aspect to which makes the sport so exciting. Is that something that enticed you when you were sort of, maybe not transitioning, because obviously you'll still do elements of this in your training, but sort of is that what sort of drew you to MMA sort of after your coach had said it, or made you stick to it? Like,
To be honest with you, I don't know what made me really stick to it. Really, I think it was just because obviously I won the tournament. I went 3-0 in a week as an amateur. Make my MMA debut. I won a big tournament. I was just like, well, I'd be stupid not to pursue fighting. Like, I seemed pretty good at it. And yeah, obviously I always liked MMA anyway. I just thought I wasn't capable of doing it, and then when obviously I got that was disproved, I could definitely do it. I just thought right then I got to round up my striking, get better wrestling, and build on the good grappling base that I had. So yeah, I don't know what really like drew me to it so much, but I just do seem to like fighting. Like,
you're all right. It's all right. You're all right. Yeah. Yes, you're right. So obviously, from my perspective, like seeing you see that, you say, "Oh, I got to improve there. I got to improve there." For you, how important is it to sort of not overanalyze or potentially underanalyze a fight based on how you've performed?
Yeah, so I've done it a lot already. Like, I've watched my fight a fair amount of times since Saturday. Like, it's only Tuesday now. I've watched it, I've analysed it, I've made notes about my performance, things I was happy with, stuff that needs improving. And I think every fighter does it. Like, at the end of the day, when you start saying like that fight was the perfect fight, I think that's when you start getting worse, because you just think your skills are complete, and the reality is your skills aren't ever complete, and that's what I feel like every fighter should aspire to be like, because like I said, the moment you start thinking like my skills are there, like I'm done, I don't have to learn anymore, I think that's when you just start getting worse. So yeah, I'm always interested in acquiring more technique and getting better at my current technique, and just constantly getting better, because that's what we've got to do. Like, got to climb that ladder. I have to get better. Like, I can't stay the same way I am. So that's it, really.
And how much are you sort of looking towards sort of lads who are already there, sort of potentially at the top of that chain, sort of in the UFC, sort of looking at what they're doing, or is it very much sort of individually where you are sort of thinking, right, I'm Rowan here and he's sort of, I don't know, Dustin Poirier. Sort of, what's the difference there? Do you have a look at these guys who are at the top already, or do you kind of tend to stick to yourself?
Yeah, I do look at these. Obviously, I watch the UFC. Like, I'm a fan of the sport anyway, so I watch all the fights. But obviously, I watch my division. So my pro weight division would be welterweight. So obviously, Usman is really, really good, and I do like to watch these fights. But I think in terms of like how do I stack up against them, if that's what you're saying, like, but at the end of the day, the boys that are in the UFC now aren't going to be there when I get there. So it's pointless me thinking like, oh, how would I do against this guy, that guy, because the very likely possibility is that the people who are going to be like in the pro ranks are the people surrounding me now in the amateur ranks, because we're all going to move on probably to the pro. So I try not to think too much about like who's ahead of me. I just like to see what they're doing and what their skills like. And like, I got a good teammate of mine in my camp now, Oban. He's a 170 pro in Cage Warriors, and like I get to train with him every day, and he's doing good big things. So it's a good marker for me to measure where I'm at. And yeah, I think I'd be alright if I went pro now, but that's not what I'm doing right now.
Does that give you confidence sort of going up against guys who are sort of there already, or do you kind of have to almost sit back and sort of understand that they're sort of possibly progress sort of a bit earlier than yourself? Because I think sort of gauging yourself, you're very sort of driven, and sort of gauging what you just said there, sort of we'll mention a little bit later on. Sort of how sort of important is it to sort of keep yourself like sort of grounded and understanding that like the here and the now versus sort of 10 years time or 5 years time, like even 5 months time, like?
Yeah, I think it's quite hard to be like it sounds really unhumble, but I'm pretty humble in my skill set. Like, I know exactly where, like, I know my skill, I know my level. I'm not out here trying to call out people who are like further along than me. I know exactly where I am right now, and I'm well aware of my skills and what I'm capable of. So I don't really struggle to stay grounded. Like, if anything, I've probably got an issue with taking credit for stuff that I do. If anything, I'm always like saying, "Oh, that's not good. That's not good. That's not good." I rarely ever give myself any credit, so that's probably where I go wrong. But I do obviously look ahead to the future. Like, obviously, I've got short-term goals. I've got long-term gols. But I think like if you always fixate on the long-term goal, like if I just every day in my life said, "Oh, I want to be in the UFC. I want to be in the UFC. I want to fight UFC," I miss out then on the goals that are in the short term that I need to do to get to the UFC anyway. So I think it's better to focus on smaller short-term goals, which build then to the bigger long-term goals. So that's my philosophy.
It's that balance like between being like humble, confident, and then sort of in the moment, isn't it? I suppose, because like if you kind of lose like one of them out of whack, you something would go wrong in a certain sense. No, I suppose.
Yeah, no, you're right. I think I definitely may have had that issue in the past. Like when I was a bit younger, I got a bit too cocksure on myself. Allowed my ego to probably grow a bit and think I was way better than I was. Took a loss and got humbled for it, and doubt that I ever really think my skills are good again, really. So definitely, it was a good moment for me, obviously, to be humbled, because now I know exactly where I am and I won't make that mistake again. So
it's quite rare that you've kind of mentioned that, and I'm going to go into that straight away. I'm going to pick apart that for a sec, because you almost sort of, and it's brilliant that you mentioned, you've kind of looked at your loss as like a positive rather than a negative. Was that like that? Was that the case straight away, or did it take you a little bit of time to realise that?
no, I couldn't believe it. No, I couldn't believe it, but it hit me pretty hard. I think like I was having a lot of smoke blown up my ass, for want of a better word. Like everybody was saying, "Oh, you're gonna be this, you're gonna be that, like undefeated prospect, IMAF champ, blah blah blah." And I just started like thinking, "Oh yeah, I am good." Like I'm looking at the top 10 on Tapology, and I think, oh, if I would have fought any of those boys back then, they probably would have smashed me, if I'm honest. So yeah, the loss humbled me, and then in time I sort of realised like it allowed me to evaluate my skills, evaluate where I was at that time, and I'm grateful for the losses because it allowed me the sort of perspective to know that I needed to improve my skills and move gyms to where I moved. So yeah, I'm grateful for them. Had I never lost, probably would never have left, and wouldn't have ever become the fighter I would have today. So I'm glad for him.
That's unbelievable words coming from someone who's already sort of achieved so much and is going to in the future. So again, I'm not trying to sort of jump ahead yet.
Right.
But yeah, so going sort of on from that, mate, and this one thing is what stuck out to me sort of quite a bit, sort of spending a bit of time with that sort of a year and a bit ago now, sort of, what are some of the sacrifices for you, sort of, which sort of, one, probably helped you achieve those accolades that you've done already, and then some of the sacrifices that you're making nowadays to try and get to where you want to get to? Because I think anyone sort of who switched on kind of probably understands where you want to get to, and I definitely think you can do. Sort of being around and following you for a little bit now, like sort of what are the sacrifices which people don't see, because they see your max 15 minutes in the cage, and they don't see all the hours, all the sacrifice that you make.
Yeah, so I, not to sound like corny, but I do feel like I put my life into this sport. Like I spend like every penny I can basically on training, on like privates with my coaches, getting physio, like eating right. Everything I do is garnered around fighting. So sacrifices in terms of like a weekly basis. I drive hour and a half to training every day, or one of my teammates will drive hour and a half every day. But I'm driving around the country every day to go and train. When obviously the fuel crisis was happening recently, it still is pretty high, but it'd be costing me £20 to go to training, just to go to training. So in terms of monetary sacrifices, I'm making a fair bit, but I don't care. Like at the end of the day, I'm making that money back in the future at some point. I'd rather put my money into getting where I want to go than saying I got a few extra quid in the bank. Like there's nothing for me. So I make a lot of sacrifices that way. Sacrifices in time I don't really care about, but like I don't really go out with my friends that much. You know what I mean? Like it doesn't support my lifestyle, so I don't really go out. But that's a sacrifice I'm willing to make. Like I choose to live this life. I choose to fight. It's my choice. If I didn't want to do it, then I don't have to. So I'm not going to cry about the sacrifices I make because no one's forcing me to. They're all self-inflicted. So
Yeah.
a lot of sacrifices people don't see, but at the end of the day, what they do see is worth it. It's winning and fighting and getting results.
And then sort of did it take you a bit of time to sort of understand that those sacrifices were needed, or sort of were you always that from when you got told, Roan, I think you can do all right here?
Yeah, I think I pretty much, like from the jump, I sort of realised the sacrifices that I need to make. Like I was surrounded by high-level boys myself. Like Brett Johns was right in my gym when I was like a young, 17-year-old boy trying to pursue a dream of fighting, and I had good role models to look up to, like Scott Pedersen, like Brett Johns, all these boys. They showed me the blueprint, so it didn't take me long to realise, like, alright, sacrifices have got to be made. I got to train every day. I can't be going out on the weekend and getting pissed because it makes me really bad on the Monday because I'm hungover. It affects my weight. You know what I mean? All these little things came into play pretty quickly, so I realised, alright, okay, this is the life I gotta live. No problem.
It's brilliant, mate, and it's quite bizarre, and it's brilliant to hear at the same time, because I think a lot of our viewers are like, well, that's not worth it. But like, you gotta put yourself in the shoes of someone like Roan, where you got that goal, you kind of almost block out anything which is a bit unnecessary, innit?
Yeah, you're right. Like, I had a lot of, I'd say a lot of people would probably doubt me, doubt my capabilities, doubt the worthiness of even trying to succeed. But I don't care. At the end of the day, like, I'm doing what I'm going to do, regardless of what anybody else thinks about if it's worth the sacrifice or not. Like, I like fighting, I like what I'm doing, and I think a lot of other people would, like, if they could have a crack, I'd say definitely have a go, like, because you'd be surprised what you can do if you put your mind to it, like.
And that's a question that I want to ask you, just based on what you said. When you do have those victories and you do get that certain stage, for example, when you got your first title in the Cage Warriors Academy, was that a case of proving yourself right or proving all these idiots wrong?
No, I fight for myself. Like, obviously, it makes it a bit sweeter when people like pretty doubt, can I do what I'm gonna do? So yeah, it definitely makes it a bit sweeter. But I fight for myself. Like, I fight to prove myself right. I fight for my team. I fight to give myself a better life. So I know what I'm doing it for, and I couldn't care if there was 500 people watching me or as if I was fighting in a car park. Like, it don't matter to me. It's just fighting. So I don't do it for anybody else.
Have you got to almost look at it like it's just fighting? Because I think, like, I've had a couple of people, like sort of Olympians and sort of runners and things like that, who have just said, oh well, like, it's just running at the end of the day, or it's just cricket at the end of the day, whatever it is. You know, the world's gonna keep spinning. You know, there's gonna be other way. Is that sort of how you think about it?
Definitely. Like, when I lost for the first time, I felt my world had collapsed, and I soon realised I couldn't think of life as like I was undefeated. What would life be like with a loss? Would I be treated the same? Would I feel the same? Would I still feel motivated to train? Would I lose and my head's gone and I can't stick going training no more? I can't compete again. And obviously, like, a lot of that come into play, but it is just fighting. Like, it's not like, it is not a big deal. World keeps spinning, as you said. Like, I had that loss, and I woke up the next day, and all my family was still there. All my friends still cared about me. Like, the only people who weren't there were people I don't really care about being there anyway. So it was fine. That's what I sort of enjoyed from losing, was that people who were like tagging along, they just dropped off, and happy days, because if you're just with me when I'm
whittle them down, innit? It whittle them down into the people who actually truly sort of support you and are there for you throughout work, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
Awesome, bro. So again, this is really, really interesting, because I have a little segment, like sort of a couple of episodes, where I sort of ask what makes a good coach, and as I alluded to before, Roan now achieved his MSc or his Masters in Strength and Conditioning. So I'm intrigued to go into that side for a little bit before we move back onto fighting, just to finish us off. For you, mate, and this is one of the questions I ask all the time, what makes a good strength and conditioning coach, or a good coach in general? Again, like, you've probably achieved this from both MMA and that, because obviously Roan as well, so check him out as well, Crocker Performance, on Instagram as well. I'll leave everything obviously in the description so you can check it out. So what do you think makes a good coach?
I think it's just being quite genuine, like having a bit of obviously, as everyone knows, like, you've got to do your care to these boys that we're coaching, or athletes we're coaching. I think that's the biggest thing. It's like, can you just be genuine to these guys? I think that shines through. Like, they give you a genuine response back. I think if you're trying to be fake and be something you're not, you're going to get found out very quickly. So whilst there's a lot of other elements to being a good coach, like obviously good demonstrator, obviously understanding your science and having a good solid educational foundation, I think just being genuine, I think that transfers over much better than any other sort of trait. Can you get across your message you need to get across, and can you care enough about the athlete you're getting back? Because if I don't care about my athlete, how are they supposed to care about what I'm telling them to do? So yeah, I suppose that's it, really. And
that's before we've even spoken about any sort of knowledge base or anything like that. Do you reckon that sort of comes with sort of experience, or are you kind of taught that? Because I think for me personally, and I've mentioned it a couple of times in previous episodes, for me, and yes, obviously knowledge is important, education is important, but I value experience over anything else. And sort of, I know obviously, I know yourself, you got a bit of experience already. Is it sort of with in rugby as well, and obviously with Sport Wales?
Yeah, Ospreys and Sport Wales and Cardiff. That was
That's
what I've done
brilliant.
so far.
And sort of was for you? Did you learn more from sort of, and again, not to put you on the spot, like from uni, from education wise, or once you got into the nitty gritty, you were forced into those sort of points of view to sort of make them maybe mini mistakes to learn from there.
Yeah, I definitely learned that I didn't know how much I thought I knew, like proper Dunning-Kruger effect. And when I went to the Ospreys, I think that's what obviously was my first experience in an elite sport environment. But I definitely went in there thinking, yeah, like I know S&C, I'm a second year uni student, I know the crack, I know how things work. Went to the Ospreys into a real world environment and quickly realised I didn't know a thing. So that encouraged me to go away and get a lot better and really build on my sort of educational foundation. And obviously it provided me with a viewpoint of what actually happens in the real world, which I think people get it twisted on what actual high performance sport looks like. So it was a good experience, grateful for it, but I definitely got enlightened the most on the Ospreys one. I think the Sport Wales one probably, I would say, glued all my knowledge together, then tied it in, because I'd already had good experiences. I'd gone a bit further on my degree, like on my third year, so all the knowledge was sort of tying together nicely around that time. So they were both good for different reasons, I feel.
It's brilliant. And then so leading back onto fighting then, because I think you've answered all of my questions in that sense. You've hit all them points. So for you, like, and you've mentioned a couple of them boys a little bit earlier on. And obviously, I've attached a little image so everyone knows exactly who they are. For you, has there been sort of anyone who's inspired you along the way, or sort of helped you along the way, whether it's like a coach, a teammate, maybe a professional fighter?
Inspired probably. Well, my teammate Brett, he probably inspired me the most when I was a kid like us. He set the example for me really early in my career, and I say to him all the time, but I do owe him a lot. Like, he provided me like a lot of mindset on, like I said, sacrifices I have to make, decisions I got to make around things when it comes to fighting. Like, if I had to choose A or choose B, like he'd say, oh well, I was in this situation before, and I did this, I did that. So he was there a lot at the time when I was going through maybe some crucial points, and obviously I've been training with Brett now a long time, so I'd say he's probably the most influential person in MMA, and he's been there since I started as well. Granted, like my coaches, Carl and Shaky, they've had tremendous impact on me as well, especially Carl. I feel like when I moved gyms and I started fighting under SMMA, I feel like I probably lacked a bit of bollocks. And I feel like Carl especially instilled this attitude in me of what you see today, like the way I fight today is completely different to how I used to fight. So I owe Carl a fair bit in terms of honing in that mindset and making me a bit of a killer, if I'm honest.
And what was the driving force for you, just before we move on to the last point, what was the driving force for you to kind of make those changes? Because obviously, like you said, he's been a big part of your life. Did it take that loss, like you mentioned, to kind of sort of make you into that fighter that you are today? Or were you able to sort of do it automatically regardless of having Brett there? Obviously not putting him down at all. But like, did it take that loss?
No, like if I'm honest, like I think Brett would say himself, like he'd been there since the start of my MMA career, like he cornered me on the weekend, so he's seen my growth all the way through.
Okay. Oh, that's brilliant.
And I think he trains in my gym now as well, so we've all moved up to SMMA, so we're all good. But I definitely needed those losses on my record. Like when I went to the IMAFs for the second time, I lost to a Russian fighter, and I was just like, right, okay. After that fight, I knew I needed to make a change, and I knew I needed to move. And I think a couple of obviously months later on, then all of us decided that we needed to level up our skills and switch.
Yeah. Well, it's a massive decision, isn't it? Because obviously, I think everyone's like, oh, he just needs a change, or he sees like someone like, I don't know, obviously a completely different sport. But someone like AJ's changed his camp massively, ready for this Usyk fight. Yeah. Number two, it's a big decision, isn't it, to kind of change a coach, especially if they've been there for a long time, or maybe it's possibly a little bit easier if it doesn't gel well and maybe the relationship doesn't go as well. But it is difficult, isn't it? Because you have to get used to a brand new coach, the way that he does things, the different team potentially if you have to change team.
Yeah, you're right. It is what it is. At the end of the day, like people move teams. It's not that deep. Like the team, I wouldn't say like that they don't own you. Do you know what I mean? So like you can come and go as you please. But I feel like once you get a solid team that you believe in and you believe in them, they believe in you. I think you can do great things. The team I'm with now, I've got full faith in them. Whatever they tell me, I know it's good advice, even possibly to my detriment, because, like I said, on the weekend, I was squeezing for a choke, which probably went on, but my corner was screaming for it, and I was like, I'm not ignoring them. So, you know what I mean? I listen to them relentlessly. Like, it don't make a difference what they tell me. They could probably stand on one leg. I'll probably do it. Like, so, I put my faith in them. They got faith in me, and I think we have a good relationship that way. So
It makes
they're great.
it makes things 10 times easier on something like fight night, where potentially a couple of nerves come in, and that's another question I wanted to ask you. Like, does it make it easier when you're kind of in this team, you're comfortable? Does it make them sort of nerves a little bit easier, or do you have any?
Yeah, definitely get nervous. At the end of the day, it's fighting. If anybody tells you they're not getting nervous before a fight, they're either lying or they're stupid. You need nerves. Like, at the end of the day, if you go in there too chill,
Yeah.
don't switch on. So yeah, definitely getting nervous. It's just I'm just way better at managing it now, or coping with it. Like, back in the day, it used to keep me up at night maybe. Like, and I would be shitting myself on fight day. I've done it so many times now. Like, I've fought 13 times, so you can imagine, as the fights, like from my first fight to my 13th, there's been a lot of growth in the middle, and I can cope with the nerves a lot better now. It's not like I'm used to competition. I'm used to making the walk. I'm used to fighting in a cage. Like, I'm used to dealing with being tired in a fight. I am just used to fighting now, so the nerves aren't so hard anymore. Granted, it's pressure, etc. But when I got a good corner, like, especially Carl, I think everybody would say he's known for his the way he instills his phrase, like, attitude and commitment. I think the words, positive affirmations, they really do help. Even if they don't even realise they're doing it. But Shaky and Carl, Brett on the weekend, just before we're walking out, like, obviously I'm getting positive words said to me, affirmations and stuff like that. Like Carl was saying all weekend, you might be strong, but you make a mistake and then you'll capitalise. And if you watch the fight, that's pretty much exactly what happened. He was strong for a sec, but he made a mistake and I capitalised on it and finished him.
That's brilliant, mate. So moving on to, like you said, you got the win sort of the other day. Sort of again, we filmed this on Tuesday. So, what's next? Just before we move on to the last point, what's next for Roan?
So next is going to be, I've got a rehab, a little injury that I've got, working with my physio. So I'm going to look to rehab that first and foremost. It's nothing big. It's just something I need to get done. And then I'm going to take a little break from competition, because obviously I fought 6 times in 8 months. So I've been pretty busy, and I think I'll have a little reset now, recharge, and I'll look for a big end of the year then. So something maybe in November, December, depending on when the World Championships are going to be announced. And we'll go from there. But yeah, for now, first and foremost, is just get the rehab done.
That's brilliant, mate. And obviously, we wish you the best of luck with that. So, just to finish off, mate, what is one piece of advice that you've got for anyone who wants to be the next sort of MMA champ within their own sort of subdivision, whether it be sort of in their own sort of weight class, same principle, sort of any competition, any category, any sort of federation, or anyone who wants to be the next Roan Crocker? What one piece of advice?
I think just surround yourself with good people. Like, at the end of the day, you're going to be like the average of the 5 people you hang around with the most. So, like, if you're surrounded by good people, people that are on the same journey as you, always pushing to get the same goal, like, that's basically what I've got around me. I've got a good support system. Brett's got boys in the gym then that are way further ahead on the ladder than me, like Jack Shaw. Boys who've been and done it, Marshman. Like, there's boys around me that have done what I want to do. They're fighting in Cage Warriors, like Oban. All these boys are around me that are doing what I want to do, so, like, it gives me a constant something to look forward to, something to talk to them about their experiences, and at the end of the day, talking to them, getting conversations out of them, is free experience, like, because they've already done it, they've already been there and done it, and hopefully, like, I won't have to make my mistakes to learn those lessons. I can learn lessons from them, and I won't have to do it in my own way. So I suppose that's probably the biggest piece of advice I could give, is surround yourself with good people, have a goal, believe in it. Attitude and commitment sounds cliche, but if you don't believe in yourself, nobody else is going to believe in yourself for you. So that's what probably a problem I had in the past, was I knew I was good, but I didn't believe in my own abilities. Now I do. I know exactly what I'm capable of. I know exactly what I can do to these boys, and I don't mind saying it either. So yeah, self-belief, attitude, good environment, and people who actually genuinely care about you and want to see you do well, don't just see you as a number or a way to make some money out of you. So that'd be my advice.
What a way to finish, ladies and gents, and what a way to sort of finish this episode of the Fitzness Academy podcast and the first fighter that we've had on. So hopefully, and I'm really glad that obviously Rowan set the bar. It's a big bar to sort of start with, but I'm really glad that we managed to get him on. And thank you so much for coming on, Rowan. And we wish him nothing but luck in the future. He doesn't need it because he's working his absolute tits off. Obviously, we look forward to seeing you very soon. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for listening to yet another episode of the Fitzness Academy podcast. Rowan, what an unbelievable guy to have on the podcast, our first fighter, and definitely that is a high bar to set, and definitely, hopefully, first of many fighters that we can have on. The discipline, the motivation that guy has for reaching the top is unbelievably motivating, and definitely I've learned a hell of a lot of things, and I'm not even a fighter. So hopefully, guys, you can take some things out of that episode, and please head down to the description box, follow Rowan, support him, because this kid is going far, and it's not to put pressure on him, but it's evident to see. So again, check him out, check all of his sponsors out as well. Obviously, he's done amazingly well so far. We wish him nothing but the best in the future. And thank you guys for listening to another episode of the Fitzness Academy podcast. I hope you guys are enjoying it, and hopefully, fingers crossed, we'll see you guys next Sunday at 6 p.m. for another episode. Take care, team.